Here. All right, so I'm Jared Osborne. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:01 on 10/26, and this is the S&A Committee. So in attendance, we have Xander Johnson, Nicholas Vila, Joey Bryant, Aaron Sargent, Jake Robinson, Spencer Winters, and Alice Williams. And we are expecting, I can't remember her name, but the missing person to come in, Mia, to be here shortly. All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as provided by Joey earlier.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
That's good because I can't. All right, and that's great. Next item up for our agenda is going to be the approval of the minutes from the previous session. And Mia's joined us, so hello, Mia. So I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the 19th.
I motion to approve the minutes from the 19th.
And Joey's got his hand raised.
I won't interrupt in the middle of the motion, so I'll wait for that.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Great. So, oh yeah, sorry, I have to call a vote if I remember right. That is the missing piece.
That's what I was going to say. Point of order. Yep.
Yes. So, well, let's call a vote to approve the minutes, and then we can backtrack to the agenda approval. So we are going to do a vote to approve the minutes from 10/19 that has been motioned and is on the floor. So raise your hand if you are in favor. Any against? Motion carries. There is a clear majority. Backtracking to the agenda, which was motioned for approval and then never voted on because the chair is, hands on head occasionally. I will hold a vote to approve the agenda. If you vote in favor, please raise your hand. 3, 4, 5, great. And so that motion also carries. And so now we have gone back in time, and now we are going forward again. So we are now going to open the floor for public comment. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I've skipped the report section. I'm all over the place today. Okay, so our agenda says reports from the chair. I have no reports other than I am fuddling through this mess. Maybe next time. Are there any reports from our advisors?
I have two, and I'll share. I realized I'm going to add it in here. I did not put communications received, so I'm going to add that in under my report because I have two pieces. But one, you're doing a great job, Jared. You're touching all the pieces. You're just keeping us on our toes, which seems fitting for you anyways, to keep us guessing. So very much in line. The two parts that I have is just as updates for you all. We did get one new supplemental request, and so I'll be following up with those individuals here in the near future. And so that'll be on one of our future agenda items. We also did get a request from one of our base funding units to come in and kind of share and make a request for you all with a potential slight change in the use of the funding. But I'll let them share and explain that, but that'll be on a future agenda. I do want to also give you all a heads up. Next Thursday's meeting, I may be late, or depending on how quickly you all miss it, I'll be coming back from Big Bend Community College at a training conference we have over there, which ends at 4 o'clock. So I may, if possible, join you all on the phone, but someone else will have to run things on the technical end, or I may miss it. So I want to apologize in advance. And then our meeting the week after that on the 9th, I will not be there because I will be out of the country. So that one I will definitely not be present for. So just to let you all know well in advance. That's all I got.
Do we have anything else from other advisors?
I do
Karen?
not. Sorry. Forgive me. I'm definitely under the weather today, but no, I don't have anything.
Appreciate you, Aaron.
And I appreciate the weather because I like winter, but not due to its effects on Aaron. All right, so now we're going to move on to ASCWU. Any reports?
Yes, so our Halloween party within the office is tomorrow, 5 to 7, if you guys are interested in. If you can see the little balloons that I have, it's not the full context yet, but there's a lot going on in the office. So if you guys are wanting to attend, we will be hosting a office/door Halloween themed contest. If you guys are wanting to vote, we'll have candy, we'll have food. And I think that is all I have for updates. And if you guys are interested, again, we have the fee fair. If you guys want to represent the S&A fund or a fee, feel free to reach out to me. And that's all I have for updates.
Great. I will open the floor to any other reports anybody would like to throw in, even though it's not on the agenda. I'm not expecting any, but just in case. All right, so let's go to communications received.
Oh, and I kind of touched on those since I didn't see it on the agenda there. So those are just the two that we got a new supplemental funding request, and that a base funding unit will be coming forward here shortly.
Great. So now we're going to go to public comment. So I would say moment of silence since we don't normally get those, but let's do a public comment instead. Anyone for a public comment? All right, seeing no public comment, we'll move on to new business. And that will be our S&A base funding program review questions, which we'll be reviewing and finalizing. Did everyone get the document for the review questions sent by Joey earlier today or yesterday? I don't remember exactly when that was sent. I guess, did everyone vote? Well, is there anyone who did not get it?
They should have gone out yesterday.
All right. I had a couple of proposed, minor suggestions that I sent out like 3 o'clock. So a lot of you probably haven't gotten that yet or haven't seen it. But I'm happy to go over those as we look at this.
I'll go ahead and share my screen so they can see, Jared. It has your comments on it.
Great. Joy, would you like to take the floor for this?
Oh, goodness.
Sure. And I apologize. I have my camera off because my internet likes to be weird sometimes. And this way I can hear you all more concisely. So, really, and just as a heads up on this, and one thing I should probably also pull up, and I will on the side, this is just a reminder to you all on kind of what it is we're looking at. Here, this way you can see me while I'm talking. Let me pull up the annual report so you can see those questions as well, and I'll explain to you all the process. A few of you were a part of this last year, those who were on the committee, and a few of you joined some of our meetings in the spring, so you saw how some of these were reviewed. But as a reminder, the program review questions right here are questions that we're going to send out to all of the base funded units to answer about this current year. And so it's asking questions, and we do this every year for this funding cycle. The intent is twofold. One, it's to allow you all to get a chance to look at these answers this year and provide feedback or questions as necessary. Sometimes there isn't any. It's like, hey, it looks great. They're doing awesome. Sometimes it's asking for more information, or sometimes it's giving them some feedback on, hey, this seems like this may not be in alignment with what this was allocated for. So it's really a chance for you all to do some review and for them to get feedback. The other secondary part is this provides each year of the 4-year funding cycle a historical kind of set of documents. So when the committee next year is looking at base funding moving forward, they can look back at all 4 years and see either how things have progressed or changed, or how they responded to the feedback from the committee. So it really is kind of a larger dive into, are they using the funds as intended? Some of the questions on here are specifically coming from when we did base funding last time, and these were requested that year, and really letting them know, hey, we're going to ask these questions. This is the stuff you all should start collecting data on every year to share with us. The other one, and just because I want to give it context on here, is I'm going to share with you so you can see, because we're going to do this a little bit differently this year, in the sense that we're going to look at the annual reports and the program reviews at the same time, if this will load. So there's only 4 questions on the annual financial reports, but I want to show them to you all if this will. That didn't take me where I want to go. If this will load. So that way we can go through these questions. For the most part, when I go back to the program reviews, well, just kidding. We're not going to look at that. I'll tell you on the side, pretty much the 4 questions they're asked is the financial report that you guys are going to look at the same time. And so we'll use circ accounting as an example, since Aaron's right here on the screen. When you all are looking and reviewing circ accounting, you're going to look at their annual financial report from last year. So now that the year is done, it's going to show what the allocation was, what their money was spent on. And then the questions they answer are, were there any vacancies for more than 6 months? What's the purpose kind of your program in a very simple part? Was there any transfer of expenses? And if so, what was that? And explain either any under or over expenditure. So if you left a bunch of money on the table, why? If you overspent, why? So those are on the financial one. And then these questions, and I'll just go through these all at once and then go back to them. But then we have 11 questions on here that, again, are looking at this year. So we would look at circ accounting. We'd see how much they were allocated last year, how much they spent. We'd see Aaron's answers to those questions on, yes, we had vacancy during this time period. Purpose of our program is to do this. No, there was no transfer of funds. I'm just making that up. I don't have that in front of me. And then, yes, we left money on the table due to salary savings that got swept back. Then we'd look at, for this year, the answers of the first part, like in what ways does your program support CW students? And as you can see kind of Jared's comments on the sides here. So please be specific and concise, which I like that part there. This is really looking at the larger part. Oh yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
I'm sorry. Are you sharing the right screen? You're on the program review questionnaire. I don't know if that's the screen you're meaning to share. Sorry.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep, it is. Yep, that's what I was going to go through. Is right. Where do you see Jared's comments on the side? If someone is shaking their head, I can't see you.
Yeah,
So
I'm
we
sorry.
see
I
them?
didn't mean to derail you there.
Yep. Nope, you're totally good, Aaron. I was going to pull up the financial ones, but the website did not want to work. And so I just verbally went through what's on the financial ones. So these ones, and I can give you all a little bit of the explanation if we want on any of these. This is really a broader question of in what ways does your program support CW students? This comes up a lot in the funding requests. So very broadly, how does it? The next question, what are your specific program goals or learning or operational objectives? And how are you assessing the effectiveness of those, as every program has different KPIs or learning objectives, asking them to identify that. This is a little bit similar to the question you'll see on the financial report, but what is the overall purpose of your program and what services does your program provide, since this is intended as student services or activities? And then the question, are there overlaps or intersections with other university programs who have a similar purpose or service? How does your program align with the specific purpose of S&A funding, which should be similar to some of this? And I'll try not to comment on your comments, Jared, until I come back to it. Please provide specifics on how your program supports and aligns with CW's strategic plan. That is one we updated This year, it said previously the mission vision, but we knew with the work being done on the strategic plan that we were going to update that. This is asking each of them to identify how their program aligns with the strategic plan of the university. Please provide detailed information regarding who utilizes your program. So specifically look at things like, is it students, is it faculty, staff, community? If they're able to provide specific demographic information like class standing, gender, ethnicity, transfer, campus location, any of those types of things that give the sense of who is using the program or service. How many unique CW students utilize your programs or services? Again, looking back at the impact piece and who is utilizing that. And then asking, how do they gather the metrics? If you don't, what's preventing you from gathering the metrics? Some of them, there's really specific reasons, and that is helpful to delineate. Are there any current vacant positions in your program? Because this is, again, looking at this current year. The question on here, given the budget reductions taking place and continuing for the remainder of the funding cycle, which we talked about a little bit, and this will come up in future weeks, please tell us what specific impact those reductions have had on your program compared to what was originally planned and including in your initial base funding request. So to ask them to delineate with the reductions in place, what are those plans? Is it reduction in goods and services? Is it reduction in staffing? Are there any circumstances or challenges that are currently impacting your ability to use your base funding allocation this year? And this is always an interesting one to see answers to. And then the more optimistic one, what growth or increases would you like to see in your program in the future? So these are the questions that we've asked the last, actually the last 3 years, because we started this the last year of the previous cycle with a few minor tweaks. And so the intent here is for you all to look over, make any edits or tweaks as you all kind of feel appropriate or necessary to be consistent, or if there are specific things happening this year that warrant, hey, we really need to ask this question. Otherwise, I would advise not to make too dramatic of changes, again, for the sake of providing consistent responses back that we can look and compare between them, just to keep that in mind. So with that, that's kind of my overview on it. Jared, I don't know if you want to go, and I'm going to turn my camera off so I can hear you all without it cutting out. If you want to go through any of your specific comments, if people have questions, I'll kind of open it up from there.
Most of my comments are just suggestions, and I'm not wedded to any of these. So a couple of them are, fairly pedantic, like the first couple, just, grammar or, readability issues. Which I don't think are major, but it's considering that saying like on the third sentence who have a similar purpose, there's a chance that people who are English as a second language or not super familiar with English may have trouble with the who part of that, and so that's just a grammatical suggestion, which doesn't really impact it that much. The fourth question is, in my opinion, almost identical to the first question on what it's actually targeting, which, because there's an S&A focus on that, that's, still fine in my opinion. But I was thinking if we have a limited number of questions, we may want to replace that with one that's maybe, something about, because the aligning with the purpose of S&A funding, we could remove the portion of that saying S&A funding, and we could just say, how do you support co-curricular, extracurricular activities? So the question is still consistent, but it gets a little less wordy, and we're still getting to the same thing. And then for the second page ones, 9, I think it's just another grammar thing with the missing comma. The and including thing, I feel like you're alluding to something there, Joey, or whoever created this document, but I don't really understand what is meant by and including in this context. So I
think with that, Jared, I think that's a grammar in all honesty. I think it's supposed to say what was originally planned and included in your initial base funding request.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. But that's just yet another grammar one then. The growth one, now I've only been on the committee for, a year and change, so I haven't seen a huge amount of this, and I wasn't here for the first portion of last year where I think a lot of this happened, but I feel like the wording of 11 is kind of like a wish list ask. So you know, like what would you like to have in the future? But we're also in a very, you know, tight budget crisis, and we're also projected to go into a further budget crisis. As the you know, from the Board of Trustees agenda that I read, they were discussing that the community college their enrollment rates, which are, you know, the feeder programs to us, because, you know, you get a 2-year transfer degree and then you come here. The attendance for them is significantly down. So in the next couple of years, we're going to have probably an even bigger budget crisis. So I feel like, you know, having a question be, what would you like to add on to your program, is, it could be a little misleading, you know, like making people think that we actually have more money than we do. So suggesting that we rephrase that to be something like, what growth or expense increases do you anticipate seeing in the future? So that still gives people a way to do kind of the same thing, where they can say, you know, we can expand our program, or we anticipate having an increase in the expenses because we're adding staff, or, you know, we have equipment that's wearing out, or, you know, many of the other things that have come before us. But we can make it so that it's less of like a hopes and dreams wish list, which we would get less concrete data on. And then my last one before I go to any questions is, and this may also be covered by the finance section, I was wondering what percentage of the people's, you know, funding is coming from S&A, because that will also help us estimate, you know, if for some reason we, you know, don't like other aspects of a review, you know, maybe somebody is not using their funding appropriately, or for some reason we have to claw that back, or, you know, some egregious circumstance happens, we are then able to understand how much of an impact, you know, S&A funding has on that program. But like I said, that could be in the financial one, or not asked at all. All right, let's go to comments here real quick, because we had chat. Okay, I think I've specified most of those. Alice said the wish list item is invaluable to see the ideal goals, which tells us what the intent of the program is. I agree with that, but I think that we could also get that from my rephrasing as well. But that's just my opinion. So, any other comments, or, you know, things people want to say on any of these, or suggestions that they have? I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to ram any of the stuff through. This is just the stuff that I saw. Let's go, Alice.
Can you hear me? Testing.
We can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you, Alice.
Awesome. I feel these edits feel very, as you said, pedantic. What is the like goal of some of these, other than like clarification? Is there any that like you see, Jared, as changing what the intent of these questions is, or like what the information we're trying to get out of them?
No, the only one that I was considering actually maybe potentially changing a little bit on was 4, just because of the redundancy with 1. But if we're trying to do, you know, how does this apply to S&A funding, or some version of how does it support the core curricular and extracurricular activities, that's still in essence the same question. It's just a different rephrasing of it. Most of the ideas for this the changes here are grammatical, which are, like I said, not very important, but it is a way to understand or to clarify what we're talking about for things. So like I said, you know, fairly minor, it's not a big deal, but, you know, for certain readers, it may be more, you know, helpful. Also, you know, if there's English majors, I don't want to get embarrassed. Anybody else have any comments, or, you know, anything they want to say about this? Nick,
Nope.
oh, sorry. Let's go with Nick and then Xander.
Just a clarifying question. Are we limited to 11 questions, or can we make additional questions if we wanted to?
Yeah, so to answer that, I mean, you all can make additional questions. I would give you caution on just going overboard with sending a massive amount, one, because it does take some time on that. I think, but honestly, I mean, specifically looking at like scrolling down on here, the question Jared's proposing, I think this is a pretty straightforward question for a lot of areas and potentially useful one. We can definitely add it on there. Like I said, I would just caution on opening the floodgates of questions in a general sense, but there is no limit to us. It's what you all decide.
Thank you. I was just wondering, just in case we wanted to add a question for any reason.
All right, Xander.
Yeah, I just admittedly, I don't see the need for a lot of these edits. And maybe that's me being a little bit short-sighted, but I feel like the necessity for change is a bit more limited. We're not exactly writing RCWs here. But I do agree with the idea that we might want to condense 1 and 4 somehow, because they do kind of ask similar questions. And so I think that maybe condensing those might be beneficial.
Thanks for that. Joey, I'm going to ask a historical question for you. In your opinion, because you've seen a lot more of these than we have, are the answers to 1 and 4 fairly similar in your rough estimate?
Honestly, and we can pull up a couple examples just to spot check some of them. Sometimes they are, because sometimes, right, like the way the program supports CW students ties directly into the purpose. What I have seen though is usually the answer to question 1 is a lot more broad. And how does it support students going down a whole path of potential things, even outside of what you consider the purpose of S&A funding, where question 4 usually gets really more specific into the S&A guidelines or the Killian and talks about this is specifically how this ties to funding in the policies. So some of it's totally dependent on the budget manager who's responding to it, though. But I can tell you, I do not recall many, if any, where they pretty much just copied what they wrote in question 1 and put it in question 4.
So going a little bit more explicitly with that question, would you recommend that we don't adjust questions 1 and 4 and just kind of leave them the way that they are?
I mean, honestly, I don't see, from given the experience that we've seen of what it is, you all can. I don't think it would take a massive amount away, especially depending on how we wordsmith the combination. I also don't see it as a huge redundancy or hindrance on the people answering it. I think the really hard part, and the reason why I'm not giving you a definitive answer is, in all honesty, it's like, well, I don't know what the committee next year, when they're looking at base funding, what would be useful to them. In looking at it, I know the reason the question 4 was specifically added. Question 1, right? We're like, we want to know, how do these programs, how do these services support CW students? So that's a question that gets asked every time we have supplemental funding. Like, what is going to be the benefit? The one with question number 4 really came to making sure program areas were thinking about the purpose of S&A funding, and does this really tie to S&A funding? And I can give some specific examples of things we've had before, to where it's like, yes, this is a great program that supports CW students, and it doesn't align with the purpose of S&A funding. And that's kind of what it gets them into the mindset of like, hey, you need to keep focused on the program of this. So that's kind of why I would probably recommend not eliminating, but again, we can try and reword it in a way where we get a little bit of both. But I know that was the intent behind why the committee 3 years ago, created those 2 as separate questions.
Alice.
Joey, are these the same questions we got as last year's committee when we reviewed reviews?
Yep, the only change on here, Alice, is to question number 5. which instead of saying provide specifics on how your program supports and aligns with CW's mission and vision and went to the old mission and vision, it says strategic plan and takes them to the new document. So that's the
Gotcha.
only, I believe, the only change that I can recall.
So I guess just for context then, I do remember like when we went through these in past committee, every question it was an either or. Either they weren't going to answer any extra questions, or they were going to answer every question with different answers, and they were very useful to have. And I just saw those two being our two extremes. So I'm personally, if we're going to change any of these questions, I mean, I agree with Xander of what's the weight of the onus of doing so, but also we might not want to do away with questions, but just maybe add on or re-clarify.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I'm not suggesting that we completely toss 4. I'm just like, what do we do with this, and is this useful? So, if it is useful, great. If it isn't, we can change it to something else. If we want to reword it, that's also fine. Like I said, my suggestions here are just things that I spotted. I'm not like expecting us to change any of this or anything like that, but I just figured it'd be, interesting to bring it up for discussion because, we could improve the form or, change things around if we see a need for that. That's just my take on it. So do we have any other comments?
I think I'd ask just for clarification from others, because I know my thought, but I don't get a vote on this, is going down to, because most of these, I'll be honest, I think a lot of these, and Jared, you already said this, are kind of tweaking, fine tuning to be a little bit more clear. It's not changing anything substantive. It's grammatical, it's edits. Those are pretty easy to put in place. I think the only two, and I'm going to scroll to make sure I'm not missing it, the only two substantive would be the question about questions 1 and 4, right? Is there redundancy or ability to do that? And we talked about that just now, but also adding this question about what percentage of your program's funding is coming from S&A. That is not a specific question on the financial reports, to go kind of answer the question you stated earlier. So it would definitely be information that we do not ask them at this point. Typically that gets asked when they do their base funding part, but to have it on here would not be, in my opinion, a bad idea. And so before you all move on anything, I'd probably open to that. Like, do people have thoughts, opinions, feedback on that question or about adding a question in general?
Alice?
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally see what is the numbers, the redundant ones, or claimingly redundant.
1 and 4 potentially.
Actually, for the record, would you mind reading those questions as they are right now?
Certainly. The current one for number 1 is, in what ways does your program support CWU students? Please be specific yet concise. Number 4 is, how does your program align with the purpose of S&A funding, supporting co-curricular and extracurricular activities and programs participated in by students in the furtherance of their education?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is just personal how we read this, but I see those as very, very different questions. So I personally would suggest that we keep what we have and maybe add on at the end, or add like you wanted to add this additional question, which I think is really good, of the percentage, what percentage of your funding's from S&A. But I'm personally not for merging these other two questions.
Okay, but just a point of clarification, I am not suggesting we delete or merge questions. I am just raising the question of if they are similar. I don't have any kind of like proposal on what to do about it if they are. So we've heard from Alice, Xander, myself a lot. Nick, Mia, Spencer, Jake, do any of you want to get thrown under the bus? Spencer.
I was gonna say that 1 and 4 are different questions. Like, I think 4 is just asking more of like, why do you align with funding rather than just how you support CWU students, I guess. I feel like it's a more specific question. But yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. Mia, Nick, I think. Okay, cool. Like I said, I don't have any skin in the game here. I'm just raising questions. Okay, so do we have any other further comment, clarification, or discussion we would like to do on any of these points?
Yes, just a clarifying question. If we do the additional question on the finance of how much S&A funds, do these programs have that knowledge of like how much S&A funds it versus another source of income?
Yes, they should definitely know that. They get their budget pieces. Also, even if they didn't know that, which they should, that's something they could easily ask Aaron. And I'd probably word it in all honesty, um, to ask them a little bit more. So like what percentage of your program's funding is coming from S&A? We can kind of guess what that is, but maybe ask them what is the total funding for your program and what is the percentage of that comes from S&A, so you all get a sense. Is this a $300,000 program and we're only funding 40,000, or is this like a 1 million and we're funding the full amount? So we can think of the wording on that, but they should know it, and if they don't, they can easily get access to it.
I think that is kind of the only comment on that question. I think it'd be a good addition so we have a little bit more context of how much S&A funds are being used to each program versus another source of income they have. For 1 and 4, I think they are okay as is. And I appreciate, Jared, for you bringing up the question of overlap, just to clarify if these are. I think that's all my thoughts on these questions so far.
Okay. So I don't know how we would like to go through this, but I don't want to spend a huge amount of time doing nitpicky stuff because, like, grammar issues are really minor. So I will entertain motions to accept specific language that can be proposed, or strike proposed comment changes, or anything like that. We could just run through these real quick. And Alice has her hand up, so let's go there.
Why you got bad timing like that? Sorry. What I was gonna say was, I think the grammatical edits all make sense, Jared. You're a great copywriter. Would it be viable for us to make a motion to accept grammatical edits versus from a motion for the other items?
It would to me, but we would have to specify exactly which ones are grammatical to be clear on which ones we're approving.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the grammatical ones are the ones outside of the additional question at the end and the overlap too?
In my opinion, yes, but I'm a non-voting member at the moment, so.
If
And
that
also
is
we
what
don't have-
you are motioning, Alice, then I think, yeah, you can say,
Yeah,
I
I'd like to
move
make
to
a
accept the proposed recommendations Jared has outside of the comments about questions 1 and 4 and the additional question, unless you want a motion to approve either of those as well.
To start, I would like to start with making a motion to approve Jared's copy edits of just the grammatical edits, not including the additional question or the overlap too.
Are great. Is there a second?
I second.
All right. If you are in favor, raise your hand.
Just point of order, you want to say, is there any discussion on the motion first?
I thought we already had the discussion, but yes, is there any discussion while you have your hands raised? Hearing no discussion, we'll move towards the vote. So raise your hand if you're in favor. We have Jake, Xander, Nick, Alice, Spencer, all in favor, so that carries. And we will now entertain motions for what to do with 1 and 4. And then after this, we will do the last question.
And just for point of order, technically, it's really only, you don't have to make a motion or vote if you all aren't going to change anything with 1 and 4. However, if anyone would like to motion to change or tweak, propose that. But yeah, we don't have to motion to keep it the same.
You can also motion to just ignore my comment. So,
That's a dangerous motion, Jared.
I know. Well, I have to live by the seat of the pants, which are on my head for this session. So. Sorry, Xander, I'm not trying to kill you. All right, so I'm entertaining motions. They do not have to be made, but if you would like to make them, now is the time.
I'm sorry, I must have missed it while I was dying. What motions did you entertain?
I am asking if there are any motions regarding the similarity of 1 and 4, if we would like to keep that the same, if we would like to change anything, or if we just want to, I guess, ignore the whole thing, which is no motions, which is functionally the same thing as the first one.
I motion to sustain questions 1 and 4 as they are.
All right, any discussion? And no discussion. So let us raise hands if you are in favor of that motion.
We don't have a second.
Oh, sorry, second, yes.
I'd like to make a second.
Okay, so I think that's Nick and Alice are second and second 0.2. Or 0.1, something like that. We have a version history going on here.
You're just keeping
right.
me on her toes with the minutes on this.
I know, right? Hopefully the next one's going to be less chaotic. All right, so raising hands for in favor of the motion to sustain the changes for 1 and 4, whatever those would be. All right, we are unanimous, so 1 and 4 is now sustained. They are remaining the same, and the last one that we have is I will entertain motions on what to do with potentially adding a question, and if we do want to do that, how you guys would like to phrase that. Alice, your hand up.
Can you do a reading of the current wording versus your proposed wording? Again?
There is no current wording because this question is not on the questionnaire. The suggestion that I had for the comment was what percentage of your program's funding is coming from S&A. Joey also recommended that we have the people show what their total funding is so that we know, if it's a large amount of S&A money or if it's a small amount of S&A money.
So essentially, well, how much of your funding is from S&A and how does your funding break down?
You guys can make a motion for whatever language you would like, but I believe Joey's suggestion was asking for the total amount of money as well.
I think with the addition Joey makes, that sounds great. I would happily make a motion to run with that.
Are you making a motion or are you?
I will make so motion. Okay. So motioned.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick vouch for it. It sounds like we have multiple heads coming together on this one, and I think it sounds great.
All right. Are there any dissenting discussions or discussion people that would like to weigh in on the opposition for this motion? All right. Let's proceed to the vote. If you're in favor, raise your hand. And this is to add on what percentage of the program's funding is coming from S&A and the total funding. We are unanimous again. So that is also carried. And Joey, unless there's anything else that we would like to talk about with the review and finalization of the questionnaire here, I think that puts us into old business.
Yeah, unless anyone has anything else, feel free to share it now. Otherwise, we'll take these edits, update it, and then I will get these sent out to all the base funding units here in the next week. As a reminder, they have until December 15th to complete this and get it turned back in so you all can review it come winter quarter. So I'll stop sharing the screen now.
Okay, do we have any old business that we'd like to bring up?
This isn't necessarily old business. I just realized in looking at something, but I'll count it as old business. This is more a housekeeping piece from Mia. The minutes from the October 12th meeting on the website are actually the agenda duplicated, if we could get that. I know we have the minutes because you shared it with us. So from a housekeeping perspective, thanks.
I would like to make a motion, but I can't make a motion, so I'm not making a motion because we don't need a motion.
You can entertain.
I know, but I don't think that's necessary for that. So.
No, but
okay.
no old business.
Okay, anyone else have old business? Second call, and then if not, we're going to move on to the second public comment. But I'll entertain it for 10 seconds here or so. See if anyone has anything they would like to bring up. All right, no old business. Moving on to the second call for public comment. Would anyone like to say anything, including Mia, on how chaotic this has been?
You did a great job, Jared, running the meeting.
Oh, you're just being nice. Okay.
I was entertained.
I figure, you got to have a little entertainment, but yeah.
And we
okay,
got the business done.
That's true. That's true. All right. Seeing no public comment, I will entertain motions to adjourn the meeting.
I motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
And votes. All right. We are out of here. Been fun. I will see
Bye.
you guys next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye all.
Bye.